And with us today we have two gentlemen, well, one gentleman and one other, who have seen a lot of this race. Tony Cable, with the less hair, trying to decide which one. He's done 50 Hobarts racing, did his 51st on the radio relay vessel last year, and he will join David Kellett again on the radio relay vessel this year. He also fired a 5-minute warning signal to start the race on Boxing Day. David Kellett has been past Commodore of this yacht club. He has been president of our national sailing body and the vice president of our world sailing body. And he has done, I always have to look up the facts and figures here, 45 Sydney Hobarts, and run from the CYC side of things, the radio relay vessel, since 2000. Now these guys they're as different as chalk and cheese. Well, they are like chalk and cheese. I always refer the straight man as David Kellett. Tony Cable, who has also the nickname of Clark Cable, in deference to Clark Gable. They've raced a lot together on Maxis during the 80s predominantly. They've had line honours wins. They took the double one year. And now obviously they'll be on the start boat where David Kellett will fire the start cannon appropriately to start the 75th race. And then we'll have to try and somehow get them off that boat and onto the radio relay vessel as they go down to Hobart. And so I'm going to ask you guys, like, you are very different. What cements this relationship, David? What?
Well, it's interesting. I think when I was just starting to put boats together, Cable, funnily enough, was one of the more experienced guys, and we had a firm friendship, and then sailing together since I think 1978 we've become even firmer friends. And I think the camaraderie that you get through sailing, and this yacht club in particular, and the Sydney Hobart race, you become very attached to friendships.
So you must know a hell of a lot about each other, having spent some miles together at sea.
Oh, many years ago we had a pact. What happens on the water stays on the water. But we've had a lot of fun together over the years, and a lot of experiences. We've sailed some pretty good races together, and as Tony will tell you, he's the best port runner winch hand in the fleet, and whether you've got a port runner or not is debatable these days, but he's still the best. So, but no, Tony was an experienced sailor when we started putting crews together, and he's a great raconteur, and he's an educator of young guys, and they all look up to him. And he's at sea, he's particularly good at keeping the crew morale going, the boat organised, and everybody focusing on what we're doing. He's good value.
So speaking to that, Clark, I believe I was told by Damien Parks when he had quite a young crew, I think it was 2015 or 16, that you held body and soul together, and that all the young people got off the boat looking up to you. So what does that mean to you, to have some influence over younger sailors?
Oh, not really. I'd like to think I'm a bit more modest than that, to have those sort of tickets. It's a satisfaction if you can go with a crew like those you're talking about, and you can teach them something, and they can enjoy the race and have a bit of fun. But I don't take much self praise out of that sort of thing.
So tell me some of your favourite memories that you've had of racing with, because you guys took line honours with vengeance one year in the Maxi yachts, the era of the Maxis. You did the double on Sovereign, both Bernard Lewis boats in '87. Give us some of your favourite memories.
it's sort of endless. You mentioned, for instance, when we won the race on Sovereign, we had to wait some 26 hours, I think it was, to have the final result announced. And someone asked me what I did for the 26 hours while we were waiting, and I said I was having beverages for the entire 26 hours. So we managed to fill my time in, but we're very happy. It was a great celebration when that particular happened. But I've found over the years I've come first, second, third and fourth, luckily. I've got to remember with any of those that might have been with David, but and line honours a couple of times, so they're all highlights. When I finally pack up the sea bag, I'll be happy that I had a good enough record for myself.
What keeps you going?
People keep on asking me.
We can fix that.
I very much enjoy it. You know, clearly to say that's a bit superficial, but no, I've always liked ocean racing. I've been in it since 61, since about 19, and I've never wanted to give it up at all. It's handy for me. I live quite close to here, so it's never been a burden. I can't understand these guys that come down ocean racing to Hobart's, commuting from places like Newcastle and the Southern Highlands and whatnot. It's naturally a very enjoyable sport. Here we are in a lovely yacht club, which I've been a member of since '64. So I very much like the sport, like people here. Got a great many friends and just like it. But everyone else likes it too. Even some of the guys that are doing, ladies that are doing their first Hobart, they'll all enjoy it if they're not too crook. Yeah.
It's just a bit close. So David, your favourite memories, and some including him, like I believe there was an incident with police one year in Tasmania.
Well, there are many memories. One in particular I do recall was on Vengeance, when we were coming up to Tasman Island, and we had a bit of a squall, and the owner of the boat was sitting in the cockpit, and he lost his balance and went against the life rails, and Tony was near him and grabbed him, and he said, "You can't go, you've got the wallet." The year you refer to, over the years we've become very friendly with a group down there with a jazz band, because as Guy hasn't alluded to, Tony is responsible for the commencement of a celebration down there called the Quiet Little Drink, when he and John Dawson decided it was pretty noisy at the waterfront pubs, so they walked up the hill to the Shipwright Arms, and the two of them walked in and asked the barman for 100 beers, and the barman's young child was, well, not a young child, but a child was behind the bar, and said, "Oh, just a minute, I better go and check with Dad." So I think Dad said, "Have they got any money?" He said, "Yeah, it looks like they've got money, so give them 100 beers." So that started with a couple of guys just having a quiet little drink, and has grown into quite a large fun afternoon. And over the years we've raised many thousands of dollars for sailors down in Hobart and blind kids, and now since we started the Youth Sailing Academy up here at the CYC, which is one of our proudest achievements, we donate money to that organisation to help train the young people that are coming through to go ocean racing. But Quiet Little Drink, as well as being a yachty celebration, really the yachties put in. But one particular year we were in Hobart, and the Quiet Little Drink had been going for a few years, and they had a street parade in Hobart, and Tony noticed that there was a jazz band on the back of a truck, and I thought, well, that'd be nice to bring that to the quiet little drink, bit of entertainment. So he spoke to the guy that was running the jazz truck, and his name was Bob Thorpe, and he had a jazz band in Hobart. And Thorpe had a strange sense of humour like the two of us, and thought that'd be pretty good, so brought his jazz band on the back of a truck to the quiet little drink that particular year, and it went on. Turned out that Thorpe was great mates with the superintendent of police in Hobart, so naturally that friendship developed over the years. This police inspector came up to Manly one year to do a course in about November, I think. So after he'd done the course, it happened to finish on a Friday, so we thought we should have lunch with him down here. And it was a pretty hot day. We probably had a couple of beverages to cool off, and as the afternoon went on, so the slanging against Tasmanians and police grew. So, all in good nature, of course. So Ernie Rose's parting shot to Tony that after lunch was, you better be careful when you get to Hobart. I have support down there. As we arrived, a policeman came up and asked for Tony Cable. Cable had to come up on deck, and some trepidation about what would happen. And the policeman said, oh, Chief Inspector Rafe sends his regards. And he walked off. He was quite relieved. But that went on for the next 4 days. Every time we were somewhere, even we were up on top of Mount Nelson at a hotel having lunch one day, and a copper found us up there and came in and, good afternoon, Mr. Cable. Chief Inspector Rafe sends his regards. I can remember on New Year's Eve we were sitting in a restaurant in Battery Point and the cops came in. By this time he just didn't know what was going to happen, and he said, just take me, just take me. So at the quiet little drink the next day, Tony was entertaining the troops up on the stage, and 2 coppers came along and arrested him, put him in the back of the police car, handcuffed him. They didn't cuff his legs, so he was kicking the door. Finished up, the door flew open and he was off. The coppers grabbed him, put him back in the car and took him to the lockup. So they did the appropriate photos with ID numbers and so forth. A little bit later I had to go and get him out. So I was his skipper, I was responsible for him. Some burden at times. And we had an invitation to Government House for cocktails that afternoon. So as we were going in, you were introduced to the Governor, and this is Mr. Cable from the CYC. He said, oh, nice to meet you, sir. I've been at your pleasure all afternoon. So that was one of the stories that I particularly liked. Another one was on Condor one year. The television people made the mistake of putting a camera on that boat, and Cable was the journalist that was doing the interviews with the crew throughout the race. And to say he made a nuisance of himself with his interviews and the camera was an understatement, I think. But we've had a lot of fun over the years. And
Tiptoes, interviewed Tiptoes, and he was in the head. I couldn't find him, so I knocked on the door and interviewed him while he was powdering his nose.
So Tony, your most memorable race and why?
Most memorable?
Most memorable why?
Golly, that's sorting out so many, it's hard to quickly think of that. Of course, the greatest achievement of all David's probably covered it with Sovereign getting the double. That we're all going out to hopefully doing as best as we can and to get a double. That's extraordinary.
Yes.
So But I've the best, one of the most enjoyable ones I've had. It was on an American yacht. There was about 4 father and son teams aboard it with
Final approach by any chance?
final approach, and Jack Earl's daughter for one, Yanni was there, and as I say, father and son teams, and a number of ex-sovereign guys, and that was really good. That was one of the best, but one of the worst. I've been out there for 7 days, 17 hours. So it was my 3rd Hobart race, but I thought it was all pretty normal.
What year was that?
63. We had a very big blow that year. Blew about 80 knots, I think they say. So I couldn't say that was enjoyable, but at least I'm happy we did it. And there's so many. Kellett, we've made a note that I've done 14 races with him, with all on about 5 different boats, I think, to die.
Yes. Including Gretel, our challenger for the America's Cup.
Yeah, and they've always been good. David's had a very solid nucleus of crew from basically day one. In fact, the radio relay ship was 3 or 4 or 5 of them that I've sailed with many times.
Yes.
So good friends and good. Well, David was very, very good at organising a boat, organising a crew. You couldn't say that for all of the owners. Some a bit ramshackle, but no, on this particular theme, it's always been most enjoyable. And then going on the radio relay ship, this is the 2nd time on it. That's good again. Again, it's a nucleus of David's crew. I've known them all, done a lot of Hobarts with them. So yeah, and it's always a fun time. And I don't mind being out there. We've been through some pretty hard times, but luckily I don't get seasick. I don't get flattened like a lot of the blokes do. A lot of I'm saying blokes all the time. So a lot of ladies, of course, by now. Yeah. But
and Tony, first line on his wing. How does that feel?
Glad there wasn't me.
What feels like? That's probably a member of my public. Don't worry about it.
It's the the only phone they could get through on. Your first line on his wing, how does that feel? Just to give us an idea, how does it feel to take line on and see the Rolex in Hobart?
Well, of course, depending on it, even if you're on the most lowly clunker with no chance, you're always trying to do your best. And
but that feeling of taking line on us for the first time.
Well, Vengeance was a class maxi in a day. Had a bit of age still by then, but you're trying hard, and to come first with a lot of your good friends and whatnot. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to get line-ins or beat your rivals. All the better if you could do well on handicap. So, well, we had and we had such a marvellous crew. We knew each other so well. So you had an instant party with a lot of good friends. So, yeah, a major celebration. And then backed up by, of course, getting the double on Sovereign a few years later. That was superb.
With the same boat owner and Kellett still a skipper.
So basically the same crew for many races. So some of I'll be on radio relay ship with tomorrow. I think 1 or 2 of them. We originally went to Hobart and Gretel, and when we start 69, I think on Gretel. All right. Yeah. So I've been with them many times, great friends.
So going to the radio relay vessel, David, and to the start of the 75th race, how honoured are you to be the person that gets to start the race and Tony firing a 5-minute warning signal before you?
I'm so honoured that the club has asked me to do this. As a kid, I always had an interest in the Hobart race, and I lived in Mossman, so I'd ride my bike up onto Middle Head and watch it when I was a young bloke. And, I would never have thought ever that they'd asked me to start the race. I was just passionate about the race. I've been passionate about this club. My grandparents lived up the road, as you would do in those days, your 60s, you went and saw the grandparents pretty regularly over the weekends. And I'd always get my father to let me out at the front as we drove past, and I'd go and walk the docks and make a nuisance of myself down here as about a 12-year-old. So I've been hanging around this bay for a long time. So been a member of the club since 1970, past Commodore, life member. It's been a wonderful journey, and I've been very happy to help the sport, give back a bit, but to be asked to start the race, it's a great honour. I'm very privileged.
Now you're also in the unique position of your son, Bradshaw, does this race every year, and he's navigating the Super Maxi Infotrack, and you are, as master of the radio relay vessel, are in the unique position that you actually get to talk to Brad through the race when he reports in, and of course he's now become a director of the club behind you, and so it's kind of a family tradition. And how is that, talking to your son during the race? Do you worry about, what's going on out there, or?
All parents worry about their kids, but Brad was stamped urgent to do this race, and I wouldn't let him do it with us until he was 16. And the morning of his 16th birthday, he came in and said, "Right, Dad, I'm old enough now, I'm coming to Hobart with you." So he started. He did the first 3 with our crew, and as I said earlier, the guys that I had are great educators and seamen that passed on their experience, and it's one of the things that we always did when I was running boats. I'd always take a couple of new people with me, because we've got to bring the new ones through on this in this sport, so that there's people to replace those that retire, and boys and girls. And it was Brad did 3 with us, and I was happy after that he went on and found his own feet, and I was very confident in the education that he had. So whilst you worry, I know he's a very good seaman.
Yes.
But I'm very proud of him, and he's done well. He's 28th race straight.
And he holds the record for the youngest.
He's 42, so
many
he got the disease early.
David, I was on Vengeance when it was Vengeance when he first did his race, wasn't it? It was Vengeance on Sovereign. Sovereign. So
no, it was actually Condor.
So we haven't even mentioned Condor yet. We've done a few races on that too. But I remember him as a 16-year-old. He was right into it. He didn't, when you take a 16-year-old, younger or older, they seem to need a lot of training, but it seemed to have been bred into him. He's a really good lad from day one. There you are, Dad.
Thanks.
Bit of a compliment.
And still loves it. And so for you, firing 5-minute warning signal.
Yep.
And then I guess the most difficult part's going to be transferring from the start vessel to the radio relay vessel.
Yeah, I'm very apprehensive about that. And I've actually got my sea bag to put on the radio ship today to be ready. But I've kept back my oilskin, so I'm going to look funny if it's a red hot day on Boxing Day and a bloke walks around the start boat wearing a set of oilskins, but I'm going to need them, I'm sure.
I would have thought the bag might have been good ballast.
I've been working on my way. Yeah, so it'll be a bit tricky. But
have you worked out what order you're going to do it in, whether it's David first and you second, or the other way around?
I'm sorry, I
said, have you worked out which way around you're going to get off that start boat onto the radio relay vessel? Will it be you first or your friend here?
I'm not quite sure of a quick answer on that, I'm sorry.
You can go first, I'll follow on.
Give him a push. So I'm going to open the floor up to questions. If anybody has any questions for David or Tony, Michael.
Di, you said at the start, you introduced that one is the gentleman, one is the other. Can you clarify which one's which?
The straight man on the left.
Guys, you've been doing this for so long. This time of the year, does it excite you still? Like it's in your blood, and you must really love around Christmas. You know when it's coming. Do you still miss actually competing on a boat?
Oh, that was my...
Both.
Oh, both.
There you go.
I think in the early stages, used to get quite excited about it, and you get used to it. I'm finding I'm not excited as such. I'm looking forward to it. Having done JBW last time, it was a fabulous voyage, and the makings of being a good one. So yeah, still very interested, but not quite so excited as such. But yeah, very much part of what I do every year. Yep.
And you, David?
Oh, I think this time of year is just fabulous around the waterfront. It's great excitement. It's fabulous to meet up with old mates that come out of the woodwork every year to do this race, and interstaters that you've known for years.
Yeah.
We also keep a log of the races when the guys get to 25. We've been the auditors of their races, so we get to know the guys that have done 25 and more races quite well, and we're all old friends, so it's great excitement. Missing sailing, yeah, I still do, but when the body gets to 70, you've got to be a bit careful. Think things through. I still race every Saturday on the harbour on a 60-footer, and we still do reasonably well, so I get my satisfaction of sailing there. Excited, I'm always, I've got a bit of responsibility in the race with conducting the skids and looking after the safety of the fleet, so I'm always excited and a few butterflies in the tummy on Boxing Day. Every year, it doesn't change.
Would it be fair to say that of all your achievements competing, you cherish the moments like the good times like you just mentioned just as much as those achievements?
Oh, my word. I get a great deal of satisfaction when we get to Hobart and we've got everybody down there safely. I do get some satisfaction that we've done a good job. Our team has done what they're supposed to do. And seeing the enjoyment that others get out of it, and seeing our mates down in Hobart, it's always good fun.
I just wanted to ask, in your time over your racing career to now, how much have you noticed the race change?
Oh, an enormous amount. I did my first race in a 30-footer, but did 5 knots everywhere, upwind, downwind, didn't matter where it went, it just did 5 knots. And to see the boats today that are doing 20, 30 knots, it's incredible the development of the sport. And I think the other thing is that the increased awareness of the safety through the crew and the training that we do. I was very fortunate when I started out. I had very good skippers who taught me a lot about seamanship. So I always passed that on, but there are a lot out there that weren't as fortunate as I was to get the right training. And I think nowadays everybody is very, very well trained, and the club takes the safety of the fleet a lot more stringently than we did back in the 80s and 90s. And that wasn't to say that they weren't doing the right thing. It's just it's all evolved, and the equipment that we carry now, it's all been developed so well. It's fantastic.
Everything David's saying just makes me sort of want to think how correct he is. But the first Hobart I did all got to the Hobart. It was in '63, 7 days, 17 hours, and they get down there in about. They can get down there seemingly in the odd 17 hours now. It's quite different. Yeah. And I was at the end of the era where they had a lot of the old gear, so we first did a Hobart race with cotton sails on. That would be probably 1960 would be the last time anyone had cotton sails, but all the old gear, none of this new Kevlar stuff, really old genuine oil skins, which were oiled cotton duck, so you stunk. You really stunk with the smell of them. Blankets, no modern bedding, no drying fabrics, probably pretty rudimentary galleys, very primitive stuff. But again, we all thought that was normal. In fact, when I did 7 days, 17 hours, I thought that's pretty normal time. At least I'm having a holiday at sea, up to a point. and the 80 knots.
Is that where your hair went?
That's an old joke I told. Where'd you lose your hair, Daddy? And yeah, it was the 80 knots and 63 Hobart race. Yeah, so David was capturing all the changes. It's hard to imagine. I actually smile at the boats that get down there in a day. I don't think that's much of a Hobart race. The whole concept and line honours and whatnot's the whole media scene on that's changed. You're very much involved in it. The real winners are the handicap winners, but that's so often forgotten these days. Yeah, and the plain straight enjoyment of doing it. So most of the fleet would know they've got no chance for handicaps or good wins. They're just going out there to enjoy it. Yeah.
Just regards to technology, you touched on that. You know, do you enjoy seeing the other boats that are more old school? You know, the way it used to be done.
That was still primitive. It's good to be on. It's only 2 years ago when I wasn't very active in modern boats. It's good to have the good winches and the good sails and the good technology and whatnot. But I think I am very much against the focus on the big boats. That's very much out of hand. But very few people would have that argument. You wouldn't hear it. Everyone's going to be focusing on this wild boat's going to be out of the harbour in next to no time. But that's not of interest to me. I'm very interested. I'm out of it sort of now, but I'm very interested in the traditional sailing, albeit modern. Yeah.
So it's good having all the classics this year. There's quite a few old classics.
Cat Wincher being one. Yeah. No, all for them. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, Tone, over the years, you've been known for a lot of things. Of course, the Quiet Little Drink is one of your better ones. What about the statistic? You better give us some statistics. How many beers? What's the number? The biggest number?
We did it for so many years. I've forgotten the numbers, but we used to easily have. We started off with the first year was about 5,000 in the day, and then we got up to something like 24,000. We had about 30 years of them. But 17, 13, 14, 24, 22,000, thousands. And we used to have a customs agent mate of ours on the crew that used to go back to the publican the next morning and say how many 18-gallon kegs did you go through, and he'd calculate how many bidnies of beer that was equivalent to, so that was very accurate. But most of the crews all shouted in terms of hundreds, 100, 200. I can't remember, but I can't remember the biggest shout. But would someone have bought 5,000 beers, David, or 1,000? Plenty of people would buy 1,000 beers, and they all. The Japanese came one year. There's a Japanese crew, and they bought their 300 beers and whatnot. So
I remember that. Yeah.
Everyone had to be in it.
And the Bacardi boys used to buy Bacardi and cakes. They bought a couple of hundred of those. Yeah. Remember that?
Yeah. You're reminding me, but there was a few Victorians right in the first crew. In fact, the first, if you know him, David Hutchin, he was the guy that when Dawson and I bought the first 100 or 200 beers, he picked up the dartboard chalk, went up to the dartboard and Cable and Dawson 100 beers, whatever it was, and just.
He was the first one with the board, was he?
Yes, David, and he's to this day, he was called Chalky. So any time they wanted to put up more, they'd say, "Where's the Chalky?" So today he's still known as Chalky, all these many years later. But anyhow, he walked up to the chalkboard and wrote Jasuma. It was you mentioned Victorian boats. He wrote Jasuma on it, 100, 200 beers, and that's what really kicked the system off. So they filled up the dartboard, chalkboard, then, and it went on from there. Thousands and thousands. Yeah. Well, Japanese, as I say, but Americans, you name it, they all did it. Yeah.
Well, there's lots of those sorts of stories that happened over the years, didn't it? And of course, the entertainment on the day was quite explicit, wasn't it? Sometimes.
Yeah. Well, that's borderline explicit. Yeah. It wasn't. Yeah. When bare boobs were invented a few years ago, I think sometimes they would actually appear amongst the glasses, that's for sure. But I
remember there was one in Battery Point one year that I was there, that a certain young lady was in the street and she undressed in the street, came in through the window, was passed around the room, went back out the window, and she got dressed in the street.
Yes. You're sure she wasn't actually a dummy, because one of the blokes had a dummy.
No, it wasn't Delvine.
Oh, right. No, you remember her. But yeah, so.
And the bowls. What about the guy who was going to the bowls club that particular year?
Yeah.
And he got stopped because somebody gave him a beer as he walked past the hotel, and he ended up. He got all the glasses off the bar, and he taught us bowls on the counter of the pub.
Wearing his whites.
That's right. Yeah.
He was out of uniform.
And we took him home, knocked on the door, and his wife came out and left him there and ran.
Yeah. Well, of course. You're remembering that the band was on a semi-trailer, and we used to stop Sandy Bay Road while a semi-trailer stopped the highway and backed into the pub. So that took a bit of doing, but then a jazz band on top of that.
That's right.
I fell over one time and cut the back of my head and bleeding like a stuck pig, but had to keep on finishing the number before they put a stitch in me. Oh, one of the fellows says you'll need a stitch or two. A doctor, Dr. Biscuits was his name, Arnott, Dr. Arnott, of course. So where's Bicky Cable's cut himself? And he said, "You're going to need a couple of stitches in that, mate." And he said, "But I don't suppose you're going to do that, are you?" No, I'm a bit busy here. So yeah, I
remember one time there was a chalk mark down the wall at around about 5 o'clock. That was the end of that thing. The
good burgers of the yacht club down there didn't like this at all. There was a lot of pressure up to the executives of this club to have it stopped. Well, they couldn't. We're out of control. We couldn't be stopped, but they really disliked it. And in fact, one year they had an affair up on the mountain, where the Boy Scouts camp is, and they organised good robust things like tug of war and a bit of rugger and one thing or another, but that didn't stop the boys having a few beers and going to the tug of war and then coming back and having some more. I don't think it altered our statistics whatsoever, but the yacht club didn't like it at all.
I can imagine, yeah.
But we've still got the remnants of the same thing happening today. We went up in the club here, we went through a series of cocktail parties over the years and dinners, and now it's more translated into giving awards, an awards evening where anyone that's done 25 Hobarts or 40 and now at 50 get on an honour board. The honour board's up there, which moved from we got some hue on pine from a friend in northern Tasmania, hard to get stuff, and he said, "Well, no, and when it was sent to through this policeman that had arrested me, it was sent to the inmates of Risdon Prison to dress it in the workshop, and instead of putting two nice panels of beautiful hue on pine out together, they scarfed it all together in one thing and cut it into a map of Tasmania. So that was the map of Tasmania is up on the wall there. It's now filled up with the names of the 25 guys, and I think there's about 130 of them now at the latest count. But there's two side panels, saddle flaps on it. Yeah. So it's quite a display up there. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I've seen it,
So
yeah.
it's funny that a thing like that started with such an unfortunate set of circumstances. And it's quite a nice bit of furniture in the club these days.
So what's your highlight of your looking back over the years of sailing? Not the relay boat, mate. The real stuff.
Well, I suppose the highlights is doing well in it. As David's saying earlier, I've actually come first, second, third, and fourth, and line on us a couple of times. So,
What's your most irreverent highlight?
Irreverent?
Yes.
Well, in terms of reverence, the most irreverent one was when they arrested me on the semi-trailer and put me in the police car, which I escaped from, and with handcuffs. Only got about 2 or 3 paces, but they put me into the lockup in the jail. The most embarrassing part of that, here I am in the back of a police car heading down to the Hooskow, and I looked up there and there's a tour bus with all these blue rinse ladies, the tour of Hobart bus, and they're all looking down, and there's a real live prisoner in the back. Look at Maisie, there's a real live prisoner in the back of that police car. I was so embarrassed. That wasn't irreverent, but it was the most embarrassing thing.
Indeed, yeah.
And then they, in the jail, they've got me holding on the bars, let me out. So that was so they photographed me. I've still got the charge sheet. I keep it with my fingerprints on it. I've got the full issue there. So I've got evidence that I was a bad person in Hobart, but then Hobart was originally full of them, wasn't it?
Well, now at least you've got a certificate to prove it.
That's right. I'm one of the regulars. Yeah.
Mate, is it true that the publicans of the hotels with the quiet little drink didn't know it was their hotel, or did you tell them beforehand, or?
It grew up like Topsy, the original one, the Shipwrights Arms. We grew out of that, I think, or the publican changed or something like that, or we grew out of it. I think we need something bigger. So we've moved the pub I can't quickly remember, went to the Cornish Mount one time.
Yeah.
We were never thrown out of it. I think it was a size thing, or change of ownership. But I don't run it as such these days. It's been transformed into a cocktail party or a dinner or something like that. Yeah. We still make a lot of money. We've done. I think we counted up one stage, we made about 130,000. That was years ago. I haven't kept the count up. But when the Youth Sailing Academy of the CYC started, I don't know if you can see it in the background, but there's a fleet of Youth Sailing Academy boats. Well, we bought one of those outright when it started in 1975. We just paid our 10 grand and bought one for the club. And every year we have a cocktail party that raises money. We send a lot of. One thing we did over the years, we did it 3 times. We sent a young Tasmanian overseas to do the Fastnet race and associated races. One of those was Matthew, who was former Commodore of the Royal Yacht Club Tasmania. Matthew, I can't remember his second name, but his father was one of the guys that was dead set against the QLD. Well, 20 years later, we gave hit his son over the head with a big bag of money and said, "You go and do a Fastnet race." So, yeah, and we sent 3 of them. 2 of them became very, very successful. Harmsman was the name of another fellow down there. Became very successful sailors. So we've spent a lot of money on what we think is nice things, unusual, worthy yachting things. Yeah.
Well, mate, it's been good to talk to you.
Good.
Have a good time on the relay vessel. You're going in luxury, I presume. We have champagne to Dom Perignon down the way.
That's right. Now it's I'm just taking a jacket just for the rib, rather than I don't really think I'll need it aboard.
Have a good one.
Good. Thank you.
Thanks, mate. David Kellett, you're the man in charge of the radio relay vessel at the Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race. Former major competitor has given up sailing on this particular race to look after his ducklings. Make sure they all come home safely.
My word.
David, how many times have you done this?
Well, this is my 20th year as the radio operator, controlling the skeds and the safety network for the fleet. So did 26 races, and then the club asked me if I'd get involved in this side of it, so I'm happily doing it.
Mate, there's been a number of incidents over the years, people dying on boats, heart attacks, those sorts of things. You must be in touch with the safety authorities in Australia very closely.
Yeah, we certainly are. We coordinate it through the club. They do a terrific job of coordinating all the search and rescue and safety groups, Marine Rescue New South Wales, and etc. And we just coordinate and communicate from the yacht to those authorities when necessary.
Tony.
So you have a full group of people that are standing by ready to help you at any given moment?
Oh yes, everyone's on standby for the entire race, all up and down the coast for this race, and very well coordinated by the club.
So we as sailors, we consider you guys, the champagne cruise.
Oh, I wish. We are very lucky that we've got a brilliant boat in the JBW from the Winning Appliances and Winning family supply the vessel to us, and Andrew Copley, the captain, prepares the boat beautifully. So we're very lucky that way, but it's a powerboat at sea, and it still rolls around a fair bit. And,
don't tell me you spill your drinks.
Oh, well, not too many drinks. But yeah, it's probably easier that you don't have to get up and change a headsail or change a spinnaker in the middle of the night on a cold, dark night, but you're still rolling around at sea, and you've got to respect it and plan your voyage to take the best of the conditions.
You're spending a lot of time in administration these days. Are you involved in the America's Cup and those sorts of events?
Not any longer. I was when I was involved with world sailing. I was asked many years ago if I would contribute to the club here, and initially in the 70s, and then Yachting New South Wales and Yachting Australia, and then I was appointed as the Australian representative on the World Sailing Board, and so it carried on. I was happy to put back into the sport what I'd done. And over there I controlled several Olympic Games and was the conduit to the World Sailing with the America's Cup, but I've retired from all of that now, so I watch with interest.
Mate, it's going through all sorts of... they've got elections on next year?
Yeah, they've actually asked me to be on the election committee to follow things through at World Sailing, which is a nice honour. But yes, modern sport, it's a difficult job.
Well, the way it's evolved is evolved very quickly. It's changed a lot in such a short time.
Yes, well, I think the whole sport has. It's become far more professional than it used to be, and you need to move to meet those challenges.
And of course, the media has moved along with it, because people are getting their information in all, iPads, those sorts of things, smartphones.
Oh yeah, there's nothing sacred anymore. It's anything you do is out there, and same with our communications. If there's a problem at sea and a yacht lets us know that he's got a problem, I'm sure the media will know that probably before the club does.
Well, that's the way it happens these days.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's the modern world, so you got to work with it.
So what have you got in store for 2020, David?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't thought much about 2020. You just got to get this Hobart behind us, so get everyone safely to Hobart and celebrate the new year, and then we'll worry about 2020.
All right, in that case, have a safe trip.
Thanks very much.